Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 different ways you can color your modeling paste, or really any kind of paste. This is the light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafters Workshop. It's what I'm going to be using to color on all of my cards today. It also has a few really fun properties that you can achieve with it, or a few fun techniques you can do with it, I guess I should say, that I'll be sharing in this video later on as well. Now, the first way is one way that I use all the time. It's with a dye ink pad. You don't want to use any other kind of ink pad rather than a water-based ink pad. It's not going to work. Whenever you add that ink to it, it's going to ball up. It's going to kind of seize and just not want to move at all. It won't work, I promise you. I've tried it a million times. Stick with your water-based ink pads. Your water-based markers will work as well. Water-based inks are your way to go. You can also use your re-inkers, but I'll get to that later on in this video. So the one thing you want to remember whenever you're mixing this up is, because this is a white paste, if you're using a white paste, it is going to change the color a little bit. It's going to make it a few shades lighter. You can see here I started off with a very, very vibrant purple. I'm going to end up with a very, very vibrant hot pink that leans to purple side just a little bit. Now, what I like to do with this once I get it colored is put it through a stencil. You can also just use your palette knife and put it directly on images that you've stamped. I've seen it done on like ice cream cones, beaches, things like that. Really fun ways to color some images doing it that way. I love to put mine through a stencil, so I am using the Crafters Workshop stencils today. All the products, everything I'm using, stencil-wise, palette knives, inks, it's all going to be listed and linked down in the description box below. So if you have any questions about that, you can head down there to find the answers. And if you don't find the answers down there, you can leave me a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. So I like to put my stencil onto my card panel or my cardstock panel, whatever I'm using here, and just press my palette knife with the product through the stencil. It creates a really, really wonderful texture. I don't like to go too heavy on it. I like to keep it a little bit thinner, but you can go as thick as you want to with this stuff. All I did to finish this card was add a nice black Hello Sentiment that is die cut on top of it, matted it with a black mat, and attached it to an A2 card base. Super simple way to create a card and very quick. And if you keep your layers thinner, it doesn't take too long to dry. So the next way I want to share with you on how to color your ink pads is with watercolors, liquid watercolors. This is so much fun. I'm using my Dr. P.H. Martin's. There have been tons of liquid watercolors that have been put on the market. I know Hero Arts released some, Tailored Expressions released some, lots of different companies have, and they are a great way to add some color to your paste and things like that. Now, again, these are water-based, so if you don't have, say, water-based or your watercolors, your liquid watercolors, if you have a water-based re-inker, that is going to work in the same way as this. You can put a drop or two of that color in and mix it up. You can mix colors, make your own custom colors like I'm doing here. I added a few different colors, and then just mix away until you get the color you want. These are very, very, very concentrated, so you don't need a lot of color to get a really, really vibrant look. You can see I added just a drop or two, and that's all it took to create this gorgeous yellow that I have going on here. So I'll be putting this through one of my Crafters Workshop stencils. This is actually a cake and cookie stencil. So I am not going to use it for a cake or a cookie after I get done using it in my craft room, but I am not a baker, so I wanted to use these on my card projects. However, if you are a baker and you are looking for cake and cookie stencils, the Crafters Workshop did release a new line of them. They're a lot of fun to use. If you are a baker, they're a lot of fun to use and they're super easy. They're also made of food grade plastic, so they're safe to use on anything that you're going to eat. Just if you use them in your craft room like I am, don't go back and use it on food later because that's not good. So once you use it in your craft room, it's in your craft room. Don't take it back to your kitchen. Again, I'm using my palette knife just to smooth through all of my paste through those little star openings. I want to get it as even as possible because for this, I'm actually going to do a little bit more to it. So I have a colored paste on my card, so I'm not going to add any colored embossing powder to it. However, if you were to use a white paste, you could always go in and add some colored embossing powder on top of it. I'm not going to do that today, but I am going to add an iridescent powder on top of it. This is a clear, so it's going to keep the nice yellow color that I have underneath it, but I want to add some shine to it. However, again, if you want to go ahead and just use your white paste, you can add color with your embossing powder later on over the top of it. This is also going to give a really, really fun look. You can do this one of two ways. You can go ahead and put your embossing powder on while it's still wet and then let everything dry. And then go ahead and heat set once that paste is dry. The embossing powder will go ahead and melt like it does. It's not going to blow off. It will work perfectly. However, if you go in and you heat set this embossing paste while it is still wet, it is going to puff up and give you the neatest look. So you can see as I'm heat setting it here, it was still wet. The embossing powder is going to melt into the paste, so it's going to still stick on there. It's going to give a nice shine, clear, shiny look to it along with that iridescent glitter that's in there. But the paste underneath that is going to puff up and give me some super puffy stars with a lot of texture, a lot of dimension, and it's a fun way to add some interest to your backgrounds. If you don't like that puffy look, all you need to do is wait for your paste to dry and then go ahead and heat set, and it won't puff up like that. But if you do it while it's wet, you'll get that puffy look, which is a fun way to add a little bit more texture. There you can see I've got some nice puffy stars on there along with glitter. And if you wanted to, again, you could add some colored embossing powder on top of that to change the color of those stars too. So what I did was just cut this at an angle, add a black mat underneath it, and a little celebrate sentiment right there on the bottom on the card base to finish off this card. Now my third and final way is through adding ink on top of the paste. I love doing it this way. It is a little bit rough on your sponges, so I like to use a brush for this technique, but all you do is take your paste and put it through a stencil or directly on your card base, however you want to do it, and then just let it dry. It doesn't take too long to dry as long as you don't use a super thick layer. I put mine through a brick stencil. Again, it was one of those cake and cookie stencils. And then I set it aside to dry. Now I'm going to use my Amazon super cheap makeup blending brushes to blend on some distress inks. Again, I like to go for the water-based inks here. Pigment inks are going to sit on top. They're not really going to dry very well. When you use the water-based inks, the dye inks, they're going to absorb into the product a little bit and they will color it. If you use the pigment ink, it's going to sit on top. It'll end up wiping off later on, or it's going to take forever to dry. So go with your dye inks, your water-based inks. I like Distress ink. Catherine Pooler inks would work really well. Any dye ink will work for this that you like to blend with. And again, you can use sponges for this, but it is a little bit rough on your sponges with that texture on there, so I like to go in with brushes for this technique. I love these brushes. This is a $10 set from Amazon that I use, and I used it a long, long time. Now, with this technique, you're also going to get color on the background of your card. However, that is going to be a little bit darker than what the texture paste has going on top of it. So you'll still get that nice two-tone look. It's a really fun look. I especially love it for this brick background. And all I did for this card to finish it off, I added a hello die cut sentiment, a little flower off to the left-hand side that I die cut, matted it onto a piece of craft cardstock, and attached the whole thing to a card base. Super simple and easy to do. I hope you guys enjoyed a look at 3 different ways, really 4 I guess, that I like to add some color to my paste. And if you have any questions, you can leave them down below. I will get back to you, I promise. But that is going to do it for me today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget all the information down in the description box below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, you can do that by clicking the subscribe button. Happy crafting, everyone!